Okay, so moving on, we're going to create a new dimension style called casting. Now, I've conveniently sort of skipped over the annotation scale because I want to deal with that sort of in a separate way when we kind of get this casting drawn finished. I just want to show you a few things about that, about the annotation scale. So I've kind of just sort of skipped that just for the moment, and I'll come back to it. Now we're going to actually create a dimension style called casting. So if I pop up here, and again I've got the annotate tab open, I'm in dimensions here and dimension style manager. So in dimension style manager we've got one, again we've seen some of this from the last term, we've got one dimension style in there already, the default ISO 25, and we're going to create a new one from that. So with that highlighted, if I select new, the default name of copy of ISO comes up, but we're going to call this one casting. And click on continue. So we're going to create a new style name called casting, starting with based on the ISO 25. So it's going to use those basic settings just to set us up at the start. So I click on continue, come into the first tab, lines. You got in here, we've had a little look at this before, we'll have a little look again. So dimension line, what's the dimension line? Well, it's that little line with the two arrows on it. If you're unsure of anything, remember, just come in here, change it to red, change a color, and you can kind of just instantly see what it is you're actually affecting. The baseline spacing is something we're going to have to change. I'll just leave it at 3.75 now because it's kind of set at 3.75. It's a little small. You'll find that that's something you're going to have to change. They recommend changing it to 6 in the book. Yeah, we'll kind of have a look at changing that later, but I want to show you why we need to change that and what that affects in changing it. So I'll leave that one kind of alone just for now and modify that when we get into dimensioning. Across here then we've got our extension lines. So these are extension lines, the two lines that come up off the part. Again, just highlighted in red so you can actually see the lines we're affecting by these changes. You can change, again like in the other one, you can change the line type, you can change the line weight. We'll kind of leave that alone. Again, I'll deal with that when we come to sort of printing out in paper space. Line weight, I kind of leave that well enough alone. You can suppress these if you should you wish, so it'll disappear. Extend beyond dimension line, that's that little bit that comes from the arrowhead sticking out there. If I kind of do a large sort of change, if I change large, you can watch that sort of area there as I click. You see it changes a fair bit. If I go back to 1, it'll kind of come back down. So it's that little extension there. There's no need for it to be. I wouldn't go and change it. Be happy enough to leave it at whatever it's set. I know they change it to 2 in the book, but I'm kind of happy enough at sort of that. So we'll kind of leave that well enough alone. One that you would want to change is this offset from origin. So the offset from origin is the little gap that's going to appear here. You can kind of just about see it there in the book when we change it. If I change this to 2.5 like it says in the book, again, if you keep your eye on that, when I click in another area, you see that the gap becomes larger there. It's important that you create a decent gap there. Certainly the default value isn't near enough, and it isn't near good enough, because you want to create a distinction between the actual extension line and the component. So you want to get that gap, so it's clear that this is where the extension line starts and this is where the part starts. So you get that definition between the two, and there's no confusion, especially if you're kind of working and printing in black and white all the time. The lines can become blurred and difficult to kind of make out what the actual component is. Okay, so that's the offset from origin, so we'll change that. So remember, we have to come back to the baseline spacing. I'll pop into the next one, symbols and arrows. We're not really going to change anything in here, other than have a quick look at all the different types of arrows and sizes. You can change it in center marks and so on. Yeah, lots of stuff you can kind of change around in this. Pop into text then, and in our text, again, if we had no text style created, we could pop in here and create one, but you can see we have a lot of text styles, so we can quite easily select from the drop down list the dim text style. Text color we can change if we like as well. Fill color is just a sort of a background, if you like, color. I'll leave it as none. Text height then, we're going to sort of stick with 2.5. Again, something like 3 I think was probably a more sort of a nicer size, nice and clear. Then if you use 3mm height text. Then I come down, text vertical placement, text horizontal placement. Again, vertical placement above, or if I kind of take centered, there's a few different options there. We're going to keep with above. Again, you can play around with these yourself. Horizontal or centered, so horizontal, where's your text? Is it placed horizontally, where's it placed centered? Or you can kind of go over extension line, so you can see it kind of pushing off to one side, over extension line 2, so on. You can kind of, why you want to change it from centered, don't know. I never really changed it, kept centered as being the way. Again, view direction left to right, right to left. Offset from dim line, you can try these out yourself. Offset from dim line is one that you might want to change. It's the distance from the actual dimension line to the base of the text, and sometimes that can be a little bit close, so maybe you want to change that slightly. And again, I think they change it to 1, so it'll kind of push that text up ever so slightly. You see it kind of jumping when I click in another box. And then the text alignment, we're going to make this horizontal, so you can actually read the text. Again, you should make your drawing as legible as possible, and this will kind of help keep a lot of your radius and angle dimensions legible. Again, the linear dimensions, if you kind of looked ahead, we're going to maybe look at modifying and changing those slightly. So there's that as well. And then the next one in the fit option, in here, over dimension line with leader is selected. Again, I'll show you that. We'll actually see a little example of that when we get into the actual part. But if you remember this one, over dimension line with leader, and scale for dimension, features, annotative, or use overall scale of 1. I'm going to leave that for now. Again, I want to deal with annotative separately, so I'm going to just kind of leave that unchanged there for now. This one here then is something it's my own sort of preference, the fit options. If there isn't enough room to place both text and arrows inside extension lines, the first thing to move outside extension line is either text or arrows. I kind of like to move both out, so that if there isn't enough room to fit both, I hate to see the arrows left in and the text kind of just shoved off to the side like that. So you can kind of try both if you like, but I kind of like always keep text between extension lines, both text and arrows. If I kind of take this one, either text or arrows, and just kind of click OK and just show you what I'm kind of talking about there. If I do that, and just move it sort of slowly, you see the way it kind of just places the text outside. Not ideal, not kind of what I'd really kind of like to see happening. But if I go in and modify that again, and then take both text and arrows, click OK, and set the current close, and do a linear dimension then. And it's doing that. Why is that doing that? Oh, that's because I've done the leader thing, isn't it? Yeah, don't want that to happen. Yes, that's because they've kind of selected that. If I do beside dimension line, yeah, I think I'll go with that one. Enclose, yeah, and it's always beside dimension line. Yeah, just go with that one, because you don't really want that sort of leader appearing like that. It's very, very ugly. Okay, so I change that from over dimension line with leader, go back to dimension, beside the dimension line. You can leave it at that if you want, but it's just I don't like the look of that myself, so I'm kind of trying to change that back. So both text and arrows and beside dimension line with leader. Come along then to primary units, we've got decimal, and we're going to change it to the nearest whole number. Our decimal separator is going to be a full stop, so it's a period, and just check that book where all the settings done. Yeah, so that's changed to one decimal place. Oh, no decimal places. Okie doke. And click OK. And set that current close. and that's my dimensions style setup. Okay, now there is a sort of a child of the parent style to be created, a linear style. I just want to do a few dimensions first before, so in the next little clip I'll do a few dimensions just before I create that linear style, just to show you what effect that has on your dimensions. Okay.